Hello, everyone. How are you all doing? This is Dr. Rich Scheibner, once again back with you here for Get Rid Live, our weekly live stream on all things writing and all things digital writing and print writing, all that kind of good stuff. Hope everyone's doing well. We are not far from the end of the term, folks. So if you're like me, you're kind of ready to get past that line, maybe do some summer writing. I've really enjoyed what I've been teaching with students. I'm mainly teaching intermediate digital writing and authoring right now, but it's been awesome. We're doing like web coding and things like that in our class based on some of the things we talked about in the previous weeks here on the stream, especially writing for Markdown, stuff like that, like we did last week. And yeah, we're in the thick of that. So projects are coming up, and then I got a couple conferences coming up in the next few weeks. I've got the Rhetoric Society of America, and I have Computers and Writing. So that's coming up, and yeah, that'll all happen in May for the most part, and then the summer is mainly just about doing some rest and relaxation, right, and some writing. So lots of Nintendo Switch, all those sort of things that I'll plan on playing. So I am delighted to do this next stream. We have this one, and we have one next week. So I'm going to zoom here on the screen just a little bit so we can see it a bit more. So a couple things before I talk about the topic for the day, which is kind of open, right? It's the nature I want to have of this, is that I want to give a shout out once again to John Suffren and all the staff at the Writing Center for supporting the stream, and especially Lab Social Media too for helping promote the entire stream. Really appreciate that. That just helps generate more and more sort of folks coming in, talking about writing situations and issues. So big thanks to the support. If you want to do anything with the Writing Center, and I always mention this because I can't say it enough, it's probably even more important now while you're working on your final projects. Do think about one-on-one appointments. Those are available right here on the quick links of our live stream channel. We have one-on-one appointments that are online, in person, and we also have 24-hour online paper submissions. So do check those out. Again, like I did not use the Writing Center enough when I was an undergraduate, and I hope you are in some ways, whether you're just thinking about your initial ideas or you're in the final stages as you're working towards those final projects. So if you just need to work on your thesis statement, something we talked about in previous weeks, check it out then. You've got some good options. Also, we have workshops. I didn't mention this last time, and I probably should mention it more often, but we have some reading workshops here with the Writing Center. So we have the Dr. Dunya Baus's Grammar On series. So Dunya is awesome, and the focus of this is about meta-discursive language that you would make in your own writing. So Dunya will talk more about that in the workshop. And then Dr. Laura Allen is talking about revising sentences, so sentence variety and things like that. All of these workshops, whether it's mine or it's the ones you're seeing here, are free, open to the public, open to students, mostly on Zoom right now. And I taught this one last year. Quite liked it just because you can kind of think more about the line editing side of your projects, right? What do I need to do to really make every sentence I'm doing or putting on the page do some important work? So do check those out. And yeah, like I said, we got the rest of this stream, and then we have our last one on April 6th, which will be kind of a fun one, I think. We like to have some kind of casual but informative fun, I would say, here on the stream. And we'll talk about writing games and games for writing. So we've talked about various challenges and things like that on the stream, whether it's programs that can help you get work done, help you work through blocks. What are some specific video games, for example, that help you help us either practice writing or just use the writer or writing situations as the initial premise. If you have any suggestions for programs or games that you've played that have particularly figured writing as a central plot point or something like that, let me know. I've got a bunch of ideas in mind, and we'll kind of do a rapid playthrough of them. And even if you want to play them with me, let me know. Come on the stream as well. So All right. And one more reminder is that last week, you probably noticed that, that on the 23rd, I did that pre-recorded stream. So I hope that was helpful. And yeah, I'm kind of recovering still from West Coast times. If you want to know a bit more about working for the web, do check out that stream. It was really, really cool, I thought, in terms of just working through some innovative ways of writing for the web. And then, of course, we've got a bunch of other things that are linked as well. Okay, so today's topic is an open workshop on your major writing projects. So on the one hand, I admit this is a kind of a risky stream because it's open. So really, a lot of this is driven by maybe what you want as viewers in real time. But I do have some things in mind just in case if we're sort of still thinking about what it is we want to share. But yeah, one thing that I always try to do in my classes, and I encourage people to do, is think about days in which you can just sit with your writing for a bit and share even informal pieces of it, whether it's the opening sentence, it is the design of it, right? Because now we have to think not just about, you know, sort of what the text is, but how it's laid out, how it's formatted in an aesthetically pleasing way. And on the kind of line editing side, what sort of things are we looking for consistency? So this is kind of a variety, I guess, stream, if you will, just because you might have sort of questions or things that you want to ask me or you want us to work through. So I'll just put it that way to you all. And I might put this as a question in my text too. Let's just change this real quick. I want to add, what are some items, choose, let's say, situations in your mind right now. We'll say that. Yeah, so I'll put it on there. Like, what are some things maybe that you're thinking through and that you want to work through? Maybe you've been given a particularly difficult task, for example, and you're sort of working through it that way. Maybe you're thinking about tools. Maybe you want someone to just look through and literally read out what you're working on. So I find that really helpful sometimes. If you have a link, for example, you want to put onto a page or into the chat for free, we can talk through it that way. Lots of different stuff. And while you're thinking about it, I'll kind of tell you where I'm at with citations, and maybe you can even help me too, right? So right now I am working on this piece with co-author Sarah Reddick. We are wrapping up a piece on looking at basically emojis that were taking place during a presidential live stream on Twitch. And we are kind of in the final throes of this. I could ask everybody this too. I wonder if you have any strategies for quickly resolving citations. You know, when you go through, how do you check? Do you go line by line? So literally right now I am going through and I'm just adding things as I go. And I noticed per the guidelines of a journal we're working with, Computers and Composition, unlike traditional Associated American Psychological Association style or APA style, they have us put the full first name of every author. So right now I have to go through and make sure all of those are fixed, right? I've put them in the right way. This is kind of, I've already taken enough time away from the text, and now I'm just kind of doing that close reading and making sure all the names are accurate. So that's one of the things I have to kind of do at this point. So another thing that I'll bring up too, and again, I'm talking about my own ways of kind of getting into pre and kind of post workshop my own stuff, which I'll sometimes do with peers. is when I'm thinking about a piece and I'm kind of either getting it ready for submission or I'm just trying to sort of think about how it would be workshopped. This is a kind of a way of maybe anticipating what other folks may say. Is that I'm looking for reviewer guidelines that I often see in pieces. So if I know that you're going to publish or trying to publish this somewhere, the first thing I always do is go to the journal that you have in mind. I go to the reviewer guidelines, and you can usually find them sort of around where it says author guidelines or something like that. And maybe I'll even do this with us too, depending on what we workshop, is look at something like this as the kind of language you want to use when you're actually workshopping materials for others. Okay, so this is from the Canadian Journal of Communication, which I was actually reviewing for recently. And one thing I noticed is they have something on the peer review process, which is a bit hard to see right now. Let me just zoom in just a little bit here. But if you're workshopping your own material or you're asking somebody, you could ask them something like this, like, could you evaluate my piece based on the following ideas? So originality of its contribution to the field of communication. So if you just swap that in for any thing you're doing in the fields that you're writing for, it doesn't have to be professional writing, communication, or rhetoric. I mean, I've talked with so many different disciplines and faculties here in workshops, and I think that really just swapping this in for the class or something like that, or the topic that you're in, could be really interesting. And really, sometimes when you're writing your argument, this kind of first one doesn't fully reveal itself. Like a lot of times when I'm writing this, I have to remind myself to explicitly say why it's original. Do that work for the reviewers by saying, this is an original, a significant contribution for X, Y, and Z. Let me come back to what, this is actually related to originality too. It's very interesting. So Dia is saying something, and hello again. Thanks for hanging out. I wonder if you could run your paper through Grammarly and check all the places that it flags for plagiarism. That would make it easier to find where citations are needed. Interesting. Yeah, I don't use Grammarly that much, but I'm going to try it here in a minute. That's a good idea. Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see too, like what the algorithms pick up, right? Like how they sort of evaluate it that way. So yeah, let me run through one and see what that looks like, especially one that I was recently working on. Very cool. Yeah, give me 1 second to move this off here. We'll see what that looks like. Okay, so that's one. The soundness of its theory and methodology given the topic. So workshopping your own material. Have you engaged with the material that's in your coursework, for example, if you're thinking about it for a class? Have you properly cited the sources in that sense? Like, I always work with rhetorical theory in my classes and professional writing theories or digital writing theories. And I'm always looking for how explicitly students have worked through those theories because they've been assigned as readings and so forth. And it's not enough to sort of gesture towards the theory, right? It's more about naming who sort of authored it, and then what the kind of definitions are and how those might apply to the text that you're reading. So a lot of us are doing analyses based on theories, right, that we've been working through in our classes. Well, some of you have particular like methodologies you have to state out, especially if you're in the sciences, right? You have to talk about instruments used. You have to explain, timing, sample size, all that sort of stuff. And so in the peer review process, especially for journals, they look for those sort of things. by having a specific methodology section, and then the soundness of its theory, maybe like literature review or theoretical frameworks that you're using, stuff like that. And then the coherence of the analysis is the other thing. So, we've stated like why this is really important to study and the theories we're going to use to build on it and how we're going to get there with our methods. And now we're kind of interested in the heart of the project, which is the coherence of its analysis. Anyone ever feel like you have trouble at this point, where you want to you have a 5-page paper, for example, a 10-page paper, and you just run out of stuff to say, right? I always try to break mine up into subheads. It helps me think about dimensions, right, of an argument. So in rhetorical theory, we're often talking about like ethos, logos, pathos, or appeals to authority, reason, and emotion. And so sometimes kind of breaking up in that way to show its various dimensions could be really useful. Now this becomes even more difficult like in full sort of peer-reviewed pieces. And I can tell you that for the thing that I'm working on currently, what we decided to do is break it up by emoji. So we looked at the frequency of different emotes on one stream, and I hesitate to show the full manuscript just because I know it's still like in progress. But when we were looking at frequency of our particular study on Twitch, we saw that there was a huge number of one particular emoji, and it was this one. It was this, yes, this face. So, so it was it's one by a streamer named Forson, and a lot of people who follow that streamer were posting it, and we kept saying, "Why is that?" So we said we can treat an entire section just on that face, that one image, right? So we stay small, but we go pretty deep into that, and that's the challenge of writing analyses, is to basically go deep into one area and then kind of pivot to the next, but show how they're sort of tethered together. And then this is kind of the line editing side. So, you're kind of thinking big picture for all these first three. And you often see these kind of questions coming up in workshops with other students or with your professors giving you feedback. Those first three being really, big picture sort of things. I'm not following your structure, or I don't really think you have a good introduction, or you have a very strong introduction. Your methods need a little bit of work, but your analysis is strong. So just back up there. But the line editing side, the local kind of editing, is about communicating to readers, so grammar and style. And I find sometimes with works that I'm reading, we've kind of set this expectation sometimes to write in a kind of high theory voice, right? So that we can get the grade we're looking for in our seminar papers, like with more thickness, sometimes we say, or density in our sentences. But we also have to remember, like, we might be communicating to a wide variety of readers. If you're trying to take this out of the classroom, for example, even if you are moving it to, a field-specific journal, it's open access. Let's say you want to move it to Queen City Writers, which I've talked about on the stream before. Some other place where it's read publicly, you want to move it to. I can't type today. I need to workshop my typing, I guess. Queen City Writers, that's what we're looking for. This is an open access piece. So a lot of different people are going to be potentially coming at this and reading it. You want to make sure that it's still understandable, even if you're a specialist. So both a non-specialist and specialist in the fields. The reason why I want to mention this is because to find my own thing that gets at. I have so many tabs, y'all. It's so embarrassing. Let me see. Google Drive is. Let me just pull this off the screen for a second. Okay. So this is the revision list that we've essentially been kind of working through together, my co-author and I. And we took all of the comments from reviewers. And one thing that you'll see here, if I make this a little bit bigger, it's probably easier to see, is just saying, I hope that you'll add more description on Twitch, on the live stream, how different emotes are used, and so forth. And this has happened several times in recent pieces I've worked on where, though I know that the reviewers probably know what this stuff is, they kind of do a good job of saying, listen, like, I don't think that the entire audience reading this is going to understand what you mean when you say Twitch. So you need to slow down a bit and explain it a little more succinctly. So yeah, I think that comes up quite a bit. You know, we get so wound up in the terms and readings we've been doing that we just kind of forget that we're communicating maybe to more audiences than we think. Wendy Sierra, who is a scholar in the fields of writing studies I've been communicating with lately, said that she often writes with her mom in mind. And I started taking that to heart because I'm like, what if my mom actually reads this? Like, what's going to happen? Have you ever workshopped it with somebody in your family, for example, who has no idea what this stuff is about? If you have, what's the result been? But if you haven't, what would it be like to do something like that? I'm not quite sure. But yeah, let's try this Grammarly thing. I think this could be a good, like, almost like self-workshop moment. Download it for Safari. Wow. Okay. Add to Safari. It's free. Do I want to do that though? Do I want to keep it separate? I know I'm very like leery of putting things in my browsers because they often gum up the browser pretty bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this. This is a good prompt for me. I need to take this step. I know a lot of students use it, and I have nothing against it. I guess I'm just old. I don't know. I don't like it. I haven't found a real need to use it yet because I use like Word and other things to help, but I get so many ads about it. Check this box. Click the lock. Wow, it's telling me how to do this stuff. Jeez. Okay. Check the box next to Grammarly to make changes. Oh boy. Okay. They got it. Okay, sign up for an account. All right. Give me a second. Dia is saying, I regularly submit my partner to the torture of reading my drafts. It's fun to see how confused he gets sometimes. And, you know, sometimes using that confusion can be really interesting. So, I mean, I'm kind of wondering for you, has that been useful before to see, like, just, you're even, you know, that's even interesting to think about, to see how confused he gets. So that's another thing you can actually do is give them a project, even if it's on paper or not, and actually just don't say anything except just watch, if you can, how they react. So it's like for those reaction videos you see on YouTube, like, what does somebody's face look like when they're reviewing your work? That's a very interesting question to think about. But yeah, I mean, what have you done in response of seeing that confusion? Or in response to, I should say. Yes. All right, adding all the things, real-time suggestions. Okay, it doesn't have the plagiarism detector on this one. Skip the tour. Okay, so you know what I do? I'll put the first paragraph in. I think I can do that. Wait. Stop. That's there. You know what I can use is this white paper that we did. Let's see what Grammarly has to say. Ah, interesting. So you can set goals. Folks, you're getting to see me use Grammarly for the very first time ever. So this is interesting. So this is kind of a way of thinking about it. Like you could actually sort of set your goals this way and then ask somebody else if you've met those. So do you feel like this? Who do you think this is written for? Right? Let's say general, because we wanted to do this for. Oh, it's giving me. Oh, I got a text score of 92 out of 100. 53 seconds. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to put in the rest of this just because now I'm intrigued. I want to be like, hey, Beth, are we readable? You know, so I was doing this with so let's take this. This is like an open access thing anyway, so we're gonna it's already ready. Go there. This in. So we did this study. Yep. Okay. It's a pretty short one. There's the process thing we're talking about. Analysis. We have the lovely page breaks to deal with. That's okay. Survey results. I just want to see if the score goes down significantly as we keep. Yeah, it's funny. Like the more you add, the more it goes down. That's really interesting. Obviously, like things in here that are formatted weirdly probably don't look good, but that's okay. We're just doing some exercises. Okay, so you ask him which parts are confusing. Nice. And then work on revising the sections more often. I would have complicated the language unnecessarily. Yeah, I mean, and again, I think that there might be an expectation to, you know, with your seminar paper to write in a field specific way, you know, but even still, you have to be pretty clear. You know, if you're explaining the theory, you have to explain it sort of succinctly in a way that you, as well as your professor, understands. Signal phrases and so forth can be really important. Oh boy, we have so many pages here, folks. Let me get through this. Plagiarism things at the bottom, you said? see if that's recommendations. Okay. Ugh, that's the one added. No, to turn below. I'm looking for all the parts of this. I'm just putting it in pretty liberally right now. I'm not super worried about. That's the thing too, is Grammarly probably does stuff like that. We're just looking at like formatting, giving you some suggestions for that. All right, there's that one. Yeah, these bad, but that's okay. All right, that should be enough. But look at these, like 61 suggestions they have here for me. Correctness. Engagement. A bit bland. Oh, yeah. That's a really hard thing with this. Okay. Yeah, for some reason... Unless I'm not see. Oh, plagiarism. Okay. Go premium. No, you have to do that. Darn. And that'd be great. The writing professor gets. Oh, interesting. Okay, there's some stuff there. Consider removing it. Interesting. So my overall score. I just want to look at how it looks like this. I mean, this is such a good thing, like for your own like algorithmic report. The reading time is going to be this much. Speaking time is going to be this. So if I'm doing my own self workshops, I know that I have roughly 33 minutes of speaking. And I can tell you, like, I was giving a presentation last week on this, and I felt like this 15 minutes I was using I was speaking too quickly, right? I was trying to cram in a lot of things. So I had to kind of cut out a lot of this. This text scores better than 80% of all text checked by Grammarly. Cool. Wordy sentences. Oh, this is like rare words. 39% rare words. Wow. Sentence length 28 words per sentence. What? That, if that's not academic writing, then I don't know what is. That's yeah, no worries. I didn't realize that was a part of it. Health related. I don't understand what the difference is on that one. Interesting. Okay. Wordy. I keep seeing that. Interesting. So, Dia, do you do like a report like this for all of your pieces? I mean, I can actually see like, wow, that would be a very interesting exercise. Like, I'm using that word interesting because I don't really know. I don't have a word for it just yet. But oh, and hi, Catherine. Sorry, I missed your comment there. Yeah. Yep, it's part of the paid one. It seems like it does. So it reminds me of. I'm going to actually look this up because I don't know if it's here, and I just want to know for classes if this is there. But it used to be like in your content management systems. Like I had one at University of Cincinnati, that you could actually run it through. Like we had a thing called Blackboard, and you could run it through that, and you could see what it was checking. And I want to go into EClass and see if that's even there, because if we don't have access to Grammarly, like maybe this is an interesting feature to check out. But one thing I think would be really interesting for that to do, and again, using the word interesting because I don't know like what the word I'm looking for is to have everybody submit a draft and use this tool. So use Grammarly and attach the report to it and see, like, just without changing anything, what it looks like. And then using the guide that they give you, as well as like feedback from peers and me, update it, run it through Grammarly again, and then offer the second report and see sort of what's changed. And it's not so much like a policing thing. It's just more just like, were you able to actually like address what the system was asking you? And like, how does that complicated by what your peers and your professors have been telling you? So they're going to give you like suggestions about changing things between like American and Canadian, dialects and sort of things like canceling versus centers and favors, U's and R's sort of switch, things like that. I still struggle with that stuff because I'm an American immigrant, or Canadian immigrant at this point. Like, stuff like that. I mean, that would be super cool to just to try to even like say, what is it that these things actually do for us, and have some conversations about algorithms and like sort of digital tools, AI kind of editing, workshopping, so to say. So let me check this out. I'm interested in seeing what we can find on EClass. Let's see here. I'm looking this up. I'll just ask, like, what are you all working on right now? What's the biggest project, I guess, for you all that seems a bit daunting? It's going to require some major workshopping on your own or with others. As you know, for me, it's been my book. That has been the hardest part. I've just workshopped it with editors. They had great things to say, and I am going to get back to the grind on that. So that is my next thing. Okay, let's look at tools. Oh boy, I don't use EClass really at all. I'm really bad about that. Let's see, help. Plagiarism. Yeah. So what's one that you're doing right now, Catherine? Fully supported plugins. Let's see. EClass Plagiarism Checker. Okay. So you have to set it up. Turn it in. That's what it's called. Okay, so yeah, I mean, in terms of Grammarly, you're talking about its use for register, writing style. Yeah, you have humans looking over your stuff, peers and instructors, but like for a quick line editing read, and then maybe some more global things. It seems like that service could be really helpful. So do I have turn it in? I don't even know if you can give me a second. Okay, so Dia says working on a group project for my editing class and making documents accessible. Wow, cool. Is that substantial editing? Is that the class that's in? Yeah, that's a hard thing to do. Like we had to take this white paper I was just showing you. So we had to take this document. It's about 3,000 words. And we based this on a sort of an essay that we composed for Communication Design Quarterly. And that's like a field-specific journal in rhetoric, communication, and writing. And this is only 3,000 words, but our other manuscript was 8, close to 9. And so, again, like this all open access stuff. So we kind of had to think, okay, this one's going to be mainly for game developers to digest, whereas the other one will be for scholars. So I had a graphic here. That's another thing I had. Let me look at that. I don't know where it is. Hold on. It was... Where did you go? Printed this GDC prep was the one. Yeah, I'll have to find that a little bit later. Okay, yeah. So Catherine's saying I got one on the history of Quebec and displaced persons during the Second World War. Okay, so it's sort of like a history of displacement, so to say. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, and so like trying to figure out like what who specifically you'll talk about in terms of who's been displaced. That sounds like a hopefully a really informative project. I know that I only have one thing to say about that is that there's let's see, it is homeless Quebec tech industry. It's about like communities that have been pushed out by tech. I can't remember their name now. I'm struggling in memory today, folks. I'm sorry. This is what you get for doing open workshops. But let's see, issues, housing. There's like a sector in Montreal that's really been pushing. That's been accused of pushing people out. I'll say. Montreal. Let's see, issues, housing, tech. Yeah. I'm sorry. I can't. Guardian. Oh, Park X neighborhood. Yes, that's what it is. Yes, Park X anti-eviction mapping project. I'm going to put this in here for you. Maybe you already know about it, but I found it really, really interesting. Okay, so back on what Dia was saying, working on a group project from editing class, as you mentioned, and then you two talking to each other. That's awesome. It's hard to find the balance too. Yeah, right, Catherine. Like, That is so, challenging when you're juggling different things. If you want to know more about kind of how some strategies for juggling, there is something I did a stream in the past, maybe you've seen it, but it was on value of slow writing. And though you have a couple things coming up, like if you don't commit all day to one project, that's my argument, is that you come at it a lot differently and with some fresher eyes. So if you're working on it for like an hour, so to say, and then you switch to the next one for a bit, and you kind of have this like circular path of working on projects that, for me at least, it just seems to work like a lot better. 2 hours a day, right, that you've scheduled out to work on these things, and then closer up to the deadline, sure, you may have times where you have to work a little faster, and a little bit more intentionally, but just keep it in your tank, right? Keep some gas in your tank as much as you can so that you aren't sort of burnt out at the end. I acknowledge that may be hard to do as a student as well, but as much as you can kind of parse things out, I think that'll really help. Yeah, so ParkX Eviction Mapping project. There's also one in San Francisco that, a lot of sort of communities are being pushed out by gentrification. And they're sort of trying to reconcile like those issues, if you will. It's been a very nice stream. It's gone quickly. Let's see. I want to try to find this thing. I think I have to set up a topic or something. Teaching assistants. Start adding course content. Okay. I feel like I'm gonna be in trouble with teaching and learning folks because I haven't done much in this area. But most of the time, I just do everything on WordPress, and I take all my submissions through email. I just find it's like a little easier to handle. So this is my my workshop of failure, if you will, so that you get to sort of see live. We'll go to topic 1, and do they let me add anything? I don't know. Yeah, I am at a loss for what to add here. But anyways, I know that you can enable this on the instructor side, and I've used this before where it checks those sort of things. Now, I'm not sure if you can actually do it on the student side. If you can do that, and if you've tried this before, let me know. Because as far as I know, like, it's just for the faculty to check. So if that's the case, maybe there's some other platforms you can use. Oh, interesting. So you can put this here. So it lets you do like a little passage, I guess, to test it. I will put in something from a review. Let's see what they say here. So it wants you to sign up once you've put it in. Yeah, it seems like that's the case. I'm hesitant to put anything else in here. All right, let me pivot just for a minute. I'm going to talk about one more thing I found to be sort of helpful. I mentioned too that when I'm working on my own projects, I'm often trying to think about reviewer guidelines. So, as you're workshopping, you're in the final throes, like you're probably going to measure it against like a rubric, right? This is the same thing. So when I submitted a piece to College English, I first started here at York. Just sort of put that up here so you can see. That's the one. So this came out in late 2020. Oh, now? All right. So that was the piece. But well before this, I just downloaded the reviewer guidelines and kept them really handy. In fact, I put them like in my project folder. And so some of the things they just sort of explained was they're looking for the suitability of the publication. So does it actually fit the field-specific sort of queries and questions that come up quite a bit in the journal? So I read past issues, right? I read like the last 5 issues just to get a sense of the house voice. If you need to do some workshopping, you could always ask your professor for a sample paper or an example, and sometimes they can give you one or they can show it in class. Usually they have to get permissions from other students, and I try to do that once a year just to see if I can help students think about it as a model, but not something they have to fully imitate. It could give you some good ideas about structure, cohesion, how things are set up, house voice, stuff like that. And this is kind of a one thing, obviously you always want to write for like accept without revision. So you want to go for that A, but it's helpful to think about at the time of submission, where do you think your paper lands? Obviously, you want to get it there, but maybe that it's like going to be conditionally accepted. It's got a couple errors, stuff like that, but that's all you can do. Nothing wrong with acknowledging maybe where you think you stand, and that might not set you up for as much disappointment if you don't quite get that A when you're looking for it. Of course, like I said, we always want to look for that accept with revision if we can. This is kind of, back to the initial things that they'll ask you. So usually you have like some ways to respond to it, so on and so forth. Now that's like the review process. I thought I had, this is on their actual page. They have some good questions too. Okay, this is what I was looking for as well. It's like pretty similar to what we saw with the Canadian Journal of Communication. When reviewing manuscripts, reviewers are asked to consider the following: does the author present a compelling argument or specific interest to college English readers? So how could you swap this out for what you're working on? Does the student present a compelling argument of specific interest to the class? So intermediate digital authoring in my case, history of Quebec, maybe in Catherine's case. Do you have the argument, right? What's the argument that you're trying to say? What's your thesis? Is the topic situated appropriately in the literature? So this is where you're looking back at your seminar text or your lecture text and trying to engage with it in a very appropriate and explicit way. So for me, when I'm working in sort of academic context, sort of articles, I've got to look at previous issues as stated in the journal. So like I said, I read the last 5 issues of College English, but also like the field at large. So what have people said about digital writing and emotion is sort of what I've always gravitated towards. If you've followed my research trajectory on previous streams. Does the manuscript present a situated method or frame of inquiry? So yeah, like, are you working with a theory, in your literature? And then did you have to follow any methods? If it's just textual analysis, you're probably okay with engaging with the literature and then explaining that you're doing a rhetorical analysis or a historical analysis. What's your method? Sometimes this is only a paragraph that you need. I reviewed, only public documents about eviction, or I looked at the last 30 issues of a magazine. And here's what I had to say about it. Does manuscript present clear and compelling evidence and or analysis? So clear and compelling evidence or analysis. So if you kind of parse these two out, I have clear and compelling lines that have allowed me to explain what it is I'm working on. And again, that's very hard. You get lost in the kind of theory sometimes, right? Maybe you're not doing as much analysis, but the more you can kind of parse it out, I think the better, through like subheads, so forth. So like in Catherine's case, and again, this is unsolicited sort of suggestions I'm giving, but if it's a history, you could look at, by decade, for example, what are the most like compelling decades? Why should we care about those particular ones if we're thinking about displaced people? It's like past, present, future, something like that. So presently, what's happening? Here's an example of that. What do we think the future looks like for displaced people? That could be near the end of your submission. But yeah, these are kind of like the dimensions that often drive a lot of arguments, even if they don't say introduction to literature review methods. A lot of times they're following those structures to tell a really clear story. I've told you why you should care about it. Or sometimes I'll say why you should give an F about it. Pardon my language. I won't say that to students, but to myself I will. What am I working from to get there? How do I show the gaps in the research? And then what's the method I'm using to show that gap or to the results? So lots of different things you can do with this. And this is also, I guess this kind of stream was also more about publication as much as it was about clarity, but I know I appreciate the attention to Grammarly. That's something I've talked about in classes, but I've never actually demoed. And to see that report, I think is really cool. Even just to kind of be a bit more mindful about what you're doing. The parts of it are just suggestions. You can disagree with them. You can write against the grain, write against the algorithm, if you will. But to have it there as a resource, and a free resource, albeit, to boot, I think could be useful. All right, so we are at about time, folks. So good luck on your major writing projects. Yeah, deadlines are piling up, folks. Like 2 weeks. Yeah, take it easy, Dia. Hope class goes well. So here's what we have coming up, just as a quick reminder. Next week, we're going to kind of kick it into low gear. If you have questions in the meantime, you can post them, of course, in this video's chat or comments, and I'll try to get to them. And don't forget, you can also raise these questions to at one-on-one appointments, the Writing Center. But yeah, next week we're doing writing games for writing. This is the last stream of the term, and we'll be doing streams next year too. So we're going to kick it in the low gear and kind of do some games, things like that. Mainly like video games, and sort of see what writing can do, and how it's essential to kind of plot arguments or various applications we might try. So we'll look at those. But yeah, other than that, good luck with finishing your projects in all their different forms and modes and means and things like that. So wishing you all the best in that regard. But have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye, everyone. Bye, Catherine. Bye, Dia. Bye, everyone. Thanks for chatting. See ya.